Let's take a moment to look over our property tables and segments view in Open and Close. As always, if I'm editing or I'm updating things in the back end, I like to have this 3-line icon open. That way I can familiarize myself with the different icons that we have here. We're going to go ahead and navigate to Properties, where that little house icon is. Once we get to that screen, if you're a brand new user, this screen may look very similar to you. It's going to be a blank screen and it'll prompt you to create a new property table. We're going to go ahead and select Create New Property Table, and let's go ahead and just name it Transactions. I'll go ahead and say Submit, and it's going to create that property table for us. The main things you need to know about the property tables is I want you to think of this as a spreadsheet of the properties within your system. We're going to use a level of filtering and sorting to be able to see the different things that we need to see for this particular view. We can create more than one property table as needed. I obviously suggest using some dates or even some naming conventions to know exactly which one you're on. We'll go ahead and focus on just updating this property table right now. Let's go over some of the filtering options that we have. Here we've got table columns. What table columns is it allows us the ability to bring on a column with those fields that we have or with the context that we might be working with. On my main property table, I might want to see our contract client type, file status. Maybe I want to see the date that we're closing. Maybe I need to see the year built or the MLS number. I can scroll to the top and I can also add on different contacts as well. Maybe I want to bring on the buyer's agent, and maybe I want to bring on that listing agent as well. If I scroll to the top, here it's going to show you those columns. For your buyer's agent and for your listing agent, you can also display the office name if needed. We're going to go ahead and leave it to the buyer's agent name and the listing agent name for now. If we need to reorder these fields, let's say we wanted our file status to be the first one, we'll just click on these 3-line icons, 3 dots, and bring it to the top. From here, we'll go ahead and say update, and it's going to update the top columns here. Here we can see file status, contract client type, closing date, buyer's agent, and if we scroll, we'll see listing agent, and then the rest of the other columns that are available. To have this view a little bit easier so you don't have to scroll as hard, you can use this little arrow to collapse this filter view to then see more information for the columns here. This filter view, though, you'll want to click on that arrow again if you need to filter it down even more. Maybe we want to select a specific client type or contract status or specific contacts, or maybe we need to filter by a team or a team user. Below our table columns, we have table users. This is if you're setting up those property tables for your other teammates as well. We can click on table users and we can give access to our other team members. So maybe I want to give content team member an access to this particular table, and I want to give them access to any segments that I create. I can either say that I want them to be the editor of both of those, or I can say that I just want them to have a view only option. I can also give them the option to export the data if needed. We'll go ahead and say close and make sure that they have that option. Now we can see that it says table users 2. We can also export the CSV if we needed to. You can see here that we've got some information on what that export will look like and the best practices on how to export from Open to Close. Scrolling back up to the top, I'm going to go ahead and click on segments up here. I want you to think of your table or your transactions in this case as the bigger bucket and segments as a way to get smaller buckets or smaller viewpoints of them. We'll go ahead and create one that says buyers pending and submit. I'm going to click back where it says buyers pending. We're going to select create new segment, and I'm going to create closed transactions and say submit. What I'm going to want to do from here is I can toggle between those two. So I can go back to buyers pending, and I'm going to want to update some of our filters. For our contract client type, I want to say edit and then select buyer and then select close. And that's going to update that list from 28 properties to 17 properties. Next, I want to update my contract status. I want to see all of the properties that are pending, possibly under contract. Maybe I want to see contingent as well. We'll go ahead and scroll to the bottom and say close. Now those contract statuses have saved. Here we can see those files. and it went from 17 to 8. So now we can see all of the buyers under contract, pending, contingent properties that I have in my account. Again, this is meant to be a drilled down, smaller view of those properties. We can go up to buyers pending and we can select closed transactions, and we'll want to update the filters for here too. If it's just closed transactions, we want to see all the clients, we'll go ahead and skip over that one. But for our contract status, we'll want to select edit and then make sure we select all the options that we need. I'm going to go ahead and say I want to see closed, sale terminated. I want to see expired, canceled. Maybe I want to see any terminated or archived properties as well. Once I have those all selected, I'm going to say close. Those options will save here. And now we can see the 6 properties that have those different file statuses. I can update the columns if I need to. Maybe I don't need to know the closing date because we won't have a closing date. And maybe I need to bring on a specific contact. Maybe I want to see the marketing team, or I need to have the buyer on there or the buyer's agent on there. Whoever I need, I can select the contact from there. I can also add on the different transaction details. Maybe there's a text area in my terminated section here, terminated date, possibly need that date. Let's go ahead and grab that. Title or escrow release, maybe we need that field as well. Here we have them added here. I can go ahead and say update, and you'll see those updates here. So now we can see those columns have been updated. For our buyers pending transactions, we'll go ahead and click back on to close transactions, toggle to buyer pending. I might need to update the table columns here as well. Again, maybe the closing date doesn't really matter to me, but for my buyers pending, I want to know the EDM status and I want to know the due date for it. Maybe I need to know if the appraisal has been scheduled or the appraisal due date. Maybe I need to know the financing type, or maybe I need to bring on what kind of inspections are required for this particular client. I'll go ahead and say update, and it's going to update those columns at the top. So here we can see buyers, EDM status, earnest money due. Maybe I need to reorder them. I'm going to go back to table columns. Here at the top, I want that EDM to be right underneath my file status, and I want that due date right underneath there. That way my contract client type is all the way at the end. We'll go ahead and say update, and it's going to update those columns for us. These filters are going to save specifically to this segment. If I click back on where it says transactions, and I just select transactions, here it's going to reset that. It's going to remove all of the filters that we had. If we go back to our segments and we select buyers pending, you'll see that those filters saved. Feel free to play around with this. I usually suggest creating a couple different tables, possibly sharing them with your team members, create a couple different segments that might be helpful for you. You might want to share those with your team members as well. Feel free to test things out and have fun with it.